million cups. Do we have any first timers here? So all veterans. All right, well, welcome back. And we appreciate y'all coming out today. What a beautiful Chamber of Commerce day. A little cool off in April for us. My name is Sean. I'm one of the organizers with Val and Carlos and Charles. And we have a few out today to help us out. If you all want to participate and help organizing, we're always looking for team members. If you know somebody who'd like to talk about an idea that they have, a business that they're getting ready to launch, or just a problem with the business that they've started, let them bring their idea. They can bring their idea here. They just need to go online. On the tables, we have cards that you can share with them, and they can go ahead and apply. We are brought to you by our sponsor, which is Volusia Economic Development. So we're thankful for them, and also Daytona Cinema Tea. And there are calendars on all the tables. If you want to share that information with people, it's a great venue and a lot going on all throughout the month. Chet, thank you for the coffee this morning. We certainly appreciate that. So today we have a comeback, someone coming back to share their successes, their new challenges, and let's give a nice Million Cups welcome to Mr. and Mrs. Mentor.
Well, welcome everybody. Yes, we are back for our second time. I believe our first time was in 2021 or 22. And we have made a lot of progress and growth since then. And I know people that know about not-for-profits, everybody in not-for-profit right now is kind of on the edgy kind of side of things. You know, funding is being lost. You know, and we're limited resource-wise. So this is the time when we have to kind of build together, the community has to build together and really understand why each program that we have in this community, what they stand for, and kind of why, not that one is more important than the other, but just kind of the different impacts that each program makes. I don't really want to go too much into this because I really want to focus on more of the understanding of what services that we do to the community. So overall, we service at-risk youth, ages 9 to 17. And when I say at-risk youth, a lot of people, they all have different perspectives and understandings or definitions of what at-risk really is. And in my understanding, I really feel like at-risk can incorporate a lot of different things. So for example, our kids, we are at risk with trauma, which involves anxiety and depression. We deal with a lot of violence and their negative environments. So they're dealing with a lot of drug use, violence, lack of supervision where the parents are having to work all day and then there's nobody there for them to come home to, and they're kind of just, I would say, raising themselves, I guess you would say. At risk can also mean educationally, where they are not cognitively there or developmentally there, so they are delayed. So somebody that should be graduating, they're really more towards that 9th, 10th grade age living, so they're struggling on certain grades. You know, that's why they have IEPs, 504s, those kind of programs to help kids that are limited developmentally. You know, so when I say at risk, those are the types of kids that we're dealing with. And I don't want to leave out criminally. So we are dealing with kids that have criminal offenses, whether it's robbery, whether it's violence on other kids at school. So these are the kids that we're dealing with. Building fives, I guess, if you're dealing with schools, kids that are pushed to the portables, kids that are suspended and they're kind of like pushed under the rug. So these are the kids that also, what I'm learning is that they're pushing them through grades that they really shouldn't have been even finished in the first place. You know, so like I said, I want you guys to have a good understanding of the kids that we're dealing with, the kids that most agencies refer to us because they are the ones that are harder to deal with. The parents, guess what, are harder to deal with. You know, so that's the at-risk that we're speaking about. I'm a mental health therapist, and the majority of our staff, when they say mentoring, they think of us as like volunteers. And yes, volunteers are great, but volunteers aren't able to educationally deal with the types of kids that we're dealing with. You know, we can't give them just like a one-on-one hangout kind of person. We have to give them somebody that's educationally able to understand what situation they're in and can guide them, you know, into more of a positive future. Because that's what at-risk means. You are at risk from being able to proceed successfully, you know, in a lot of different categories. So and that's what we do. So we have a valuable staff, and we have grown. We've made some adjustments, but all of my staff are, like I said, heavily experienced. Was it 25 years for you?
It's going on about 30 years.
Good. I'm trying to get her a few more years.
I don't want to show my age.
So, but me myself, I look young, but I've been in the game since 2009. I have a valuable experience through all of the agencies around here: Stewart Marshman, Halifax, Neighbors of Family, Children's Home Society. I can go on and on. So when I started my own business, it was based off of the experience that I had dealing with everybody else. I learned everything that I needed from administration to ground level. So I'm not only were able to see the kids, but also I'm now on a higher level so I know what they actually need because I was there. So that's the difference of why our program has been able to kind of succeed the way that it has. We won 2022 Not-for-Profit of the Year from, was it the News Journal, or was it, yeah. So we're I don't really push that too much because our work speaks for itself. The referrals that we get, they come from everywhere. They come from the schools, they come from DJJ, they come from when you do good work, people refer to you. So a lot of families that we've worked with, they usually tell other family members and other people that, this is what they benefit from it, and somebody that they would also refer them to us for the same benefit. So
We've even had anonymous referrals. I had one older woman call, and on the voicemail it said, I really don't want you to tell, I know you got caller ID, so please don't tell the lady that I'm calling, but her kids are wrecking the neighborhood. Can y'all please do something with her? Her name is such and such, such, and her phone number is such and such. Give her a call, please, and just let her know that somebody said her kids need help. So we get anonymous referrals as well.
As far as our experience, we have new upgraded board members, and each person brings their own expertise, I guess you would say. I know everybody's boards are different and has different directives, but ours is really just more of the experience. Chester is also a therapist. Ms. Amaya, she's one of the main community people. Ms. Regina, she's a lawyer. Ms. Dean is one of our biggest marketing. So everybody that we have has their own specific piece. It's not just kind of like we need a board so we just have it. It's not that kind of thing. Okay. So some of the programs that we offer. So the real program is when I do an assessment and we provide the kid either a mental health therapist and or a case manager, which is really our mentors. They don't pay for mentoring, they pay for case management, but with the umbrella of that mentoring piece. So usually when you do a case management, you're finding resources for somebody. We're not only finding the resources, but we're also doing that day-to-day, that week-to-week work with them as well. So in most cases, we are the referral source. So most places are referring to us to provide the services versus we referring out. The only things that we refer out is dealing with medications, because we're not a medication management, we're not a hospital, and we also refer out for residential. So for kids that need residential help, like Stewart Marshman's Baker Act, or Halifax's Baker Act, or Stewart Marshman's Beach House, those kind of places, because those are that's outside of our scope. So, and recently,
with the real program, the kids get a treatment plan. So they come up with their own goals that they need to work on, and the mentors, case managers, work with them throughout their time in the program on that treatment plan. And sometimes life happens. So the treatment plan has to be modified and a new goal has to be added. And so with the treatment plan, that's how they get through the program.
okay. I'm going to go through this real quick because I want to get you guys the statistics, because statistics is what really shows the benefits and the success. So the Learn and Earn program actually started from Career Source with Ms. Robin. That's when this is our summer program where we basically take them on field trips to go to different businesses. We have different presenters from entrepreneurs and different opportunities career-wise to give and put in front of them, because most of our kids, I'm not going to say that they're not college per se material, but they're struggling in normal classes. So expecting them to do higher education without any major support, doesn't always make the best fit for them. So that's why we offer possible trade skills and give them some other opportunities to kind of be successful outside of just going to college. Not saying that we don't push them towards that, but if that's not for them, we want to also give them another opportunity. Our Back on Track program is our partnership with Daytona Beach. Even though we're located in Holly Hill, Daytona Beach has been one of our major supporters as far as the city, and a lot of our youth are in Daytona Beach. So our Back on Track program is for the kids that don't qualify. When I say qualified, meaning you have to have some type of behavioral issues, some type of trauma or mental health conditions, and then you also have to be considered low-income family. So our services will be free to a family that is low income, that's Medicaid-ish type of range, the 150% of the poverty level. So that's pretty much where we are at. So you have to kind of be very low level to be able to offer free services, but then we also offer sliding scale for people that do make a little bit more. So, and anyway, so Back on Track was our program where we partnered with the city at the Von Golden Scarlet Center, and that's where we do did I say it right? Okay, anyway, that's 5 to 7, Tuesdays and Thursdays. We offer tutoring for the first hour and then just open group mentoring for the second hour. And that's, like I said, that's for the kids that don't qualify for our program, so they're not getting a one-on-one intensive mentor or therapist. This is for the kids that they just need some kind of support. There's no real behavioral issues, and they don't really qualify, but we also want to extend our services to those kids as well, so nobody's kind of being left behind. We'll skip that. I do want to talk a little bit about the events. So as far as the events, not only do we offer one-on-one services, we also fill in those voids. So outside, so for example, as a therapist, when I used to work for other places, I saw that kid one time that week, and that was it. I'll see you two next week, pretty much. Call me if you need me, but that's pretty much what I offer. So for us, we also offer monthly group events where not only do they get that one-on-one, they also get that social services, social skills from being around other kids. We just had our field day, neighborhood role model field day, which had over 100 kids. Only 50 of them was ours. So there was a 50 community kids that interacted with our kids without any issues, without any fights.
No issues, no fights.
And that normally isn't as easy to do, but even our kids, they were like a mentor for the other kids. The kids that were cursing, they were like, stop cursing, we don't do that out here. Kids were trying to fight other kids because they're over something like pizza or something like that. It was like there's be enough to go around. So not only are we helping them become successful, they're also pushing that back to other people. And now some of our mentor kids are mentoring other kids in their neighborhood, mentoring other kids in their classrooms and those kind of things. And that's kind of how we kind of like passion forward. What do you call it? Like pay it forward. You guys know what I'm saying.
So the neighborhood role model is, he said neighborhood role model field day. So neighborhood role models are our supporters. So as an ongoing, what do you call it? Fundraiser. As an ongoing fundraiser, we sell products with neighborhood role model on them. You'll see it somewhere in the slideshow. But we have neighborhood people that buy shirts and hats and hoodies. And so anytime we have an event, they are more of our volunteers to help us with the kids doing all of the things that we do. So we dedicated that specific event to our neighborhood role models, letting them know that we thank them, we appreciate them. And by the way, we did old school games like sack race and tug of war and all that kind of stuff. And then the big event was kickball, the neighborhood role models against the kids, and of course we won. The adults won. These kids didn't even know how to play kickball. Like it was crazy. They don't know. They haven't gotten these social skills that we got when we were younger.
So before we go into statistics, I know we're time limited. When I say events, they're not just let's just do event just cause. We've been deep sea fishing. I wasn't even deep sea fishing. That was my first time going deep sea fishing, was with the kids. We've been camping. We've been to the news journal, the news stations in Orlando. We've been to
rock climbing.
Not rock climbing, bouldering. I don't know if you guys know what bouldering is, but that's without the ropes. So those are we've been zip lining. We've talked to autistic kids who so-called, they say, can't do certain things, but I've done everything that you can think of with them. I've taken an autistic kid that can't get a job. Now he trained my standard poodle, and now he's the therapeutic service dog. So it's not just helping the kid, it's also helping them to the next level. I had to actually take time off to help him get trained, make sure he was, get him to the office to be able to get trained. So it's a little bit more than just that one-on-one. We really go, in depth with a certain thing. So statistics is where I'm gonna let her take statistics.
Okay, so I know that you all can read, but I have to make you understand that it's Derek, myself, a lead youth care worker, and a part-time care worker, 2 part-time care workers that got all of this done in this physical year. We had 114 kids in our program. We serviced 114 kids with just 4 major players, with 4 staff. 98.2% of the participants avoided involuntary psychiatric intervention, meaning only 1.8% of our kids got a Baker Act. We only had 2.6 of our kids, of the 114 kids, that were arrested. We had 5.3% of our kids that were suspended from school. That is huge with at-risk youth, to be suspended from school. We had 5 out of our 6 eligible seniors graduate from high school. And out of that 5, we had 4 of them enter college. Where am I? 95% of our parents reported significant behavior improvements at home, reinforcing the program's impact on family dynamics. Less than 1% of our youth got residential admittance. When I say residential admittance, I mean when a kid gets in trouble criminally and they go through court and they have to be placed in a residential program. So only one of our kids, 114 kids, only one of them was admitted to a residential program. These numbers reflect real impact, reducing at-risk behaviors, increasing graduation rates, and improving family dynamics. With additional investment, we can scale these efforts to reach more youth, strengthen support systems, and further reduce our negative outcomes.
Where are we at on time?
You're good.
You good?
Yeah.
Done?
No, you're good. Keep
Cool.
going.
Okay, so the reason why.
Executive decision.
Okay, sure, appreciate that. So the reason why I wanted to show this is because in order to keep things like this going, funding, everybody needs funding, but small or not, we're not small, because 114 kids is not small. We have a facility, most people don't even know until they get to the facility how big the facility actually is, and that stuff costs. We have a gym, which we do boxing classes 2 days a week. We have a music studio for all of our musically inclined kids. We have a meditation room so they can learn how to kind of become in tune with themselves. We have an arts and crafts room. I can't draw for anything, but a lot of our kids can, and a lot of them really could be artists, So when I see kids that have potential that normally other people will overlook, that's when I try to push them into whatever, not what I see that they can do, what their interests are. So there's really more of a hands-on approach, not just a service. This is hands-on. This is Saturday and Sunday when the kid got kicked out of his house and I have to go pick him up and take him somewhere and then call 9 agencies to find out where he can go. That's not what a normal day-to-day therapist does. I have to wear a lot of hats, so I got about 10 hats every day that I'm putting on. I gotta clean up, then I gotta send an email, then I gotta do some outreach, and then I gotta go see kids. So I'm a therapist, but I also have to service the kids because out of our staff, how do I say this? When I used to work for other places, they loaded me up with a caseload. So many kids that it was hard for me to really give that time to each individual one. So with our staff, we don't overload them. We give them a caseload that they can actually manage correctly, and they can put that extra little time in and call the parents and go to the schools and see what's really going on. Because we follow the kids wherever they go. So if they're in Mainland and then they transfer to Seabreeze, guess what? We're transferring to Seabreeze. And that's kind of how that goes. So sometimes we might have 30 kids at Mainland, and then next year they all graduated or they transferred, and now we have 10. So we follow those kids wherever they go. If they go to DJJ and they get arrested, guess what? We're at the doors. If they go and they get Baker acted, we're gonna see them at the hospital. So we're gonna find them, we're gonna meet them where they are at versus expecting them to kind of come up to our standards. And I know for a lot of agencies it's like cutter, it seems like, and for the kids that we deal with, that's not really going to work. it doesn't really going to work. And if you don't really understand that at-risk portion that I explained to earlier, you'll know why that doesn't work, because everybody is different. Each kid, even though it's trauma, is a different kind of trauma. Even though they're in a bad environment, there's different environments, and everybody's family dynamics are a little bit different, you know. And we have white, black, Spanish, Indian, any kind of kids you can think of, you know. So it's not just a one-sided thing. We're dealing with kids from all the way from Port Orange to Ormond. I mean, we have kids in Palm Coast, Bunnell, but those are a little bit out of our area where I don't want to stretch my staff so thin. You know, it's not about just the funding. I can get a lot of funding when it comes to that if we just spread ourselves all over the place. But like I said, we're trying to make a major impact here in this Daytona Beach, Port Orange, Ormond area, because there's more than enough clients to go around. And the demand is there, you know. So I have a folder of referrals that I can call, but I can't call them until I have enough staff to meet that demand. You know, so that's why the funding is so important, because more funding, more staff, more kids are being seen, and that's kind of where we are. I'll leave it up to questions, or you want that?
It's just more statistics, the return on your investment. Pretty much, you know, you can't, there's a lot of cuts that's going around, but the major cut has been in child health care, child mental health, and they're pouring more into adult substance abuse. Well, our belief is if we fix them now, you're gonna have to deal with adult substance abuse later. So we really feel that if you invest in the youth now, you won't have to worry about not having someone that you can hire later, or someone that is walking around neighborhoods checking car doors, that kind of thing. Your investment is huge when it comes to you. It's huge when it comes to you.
All right.
All right.
This is the opportunity where we ask our audience to ask you questions, you get to answer back, give you some advice. There's no dumb question around here. There's no dumb advice. This is all good stuff. We thank you. Great presentation. It's good to see you back. It's good to see that you're making an impact on the community. We're very thrilled to have you here, and we've got some folks that want to ask you some questions.
Hi, Lori McMullen with your Daytona Regional Chamber. Great to hear the report out. That's marvelous how far you've come in such a short period of time. Get it with the 30+ years of experience. So when I tell you my background, it's not to talk about how fabulous I am, but to let you know that I kind of have an idea where you're coming from. You mentioned Robin King. I was a colleague with her for 15 years in business development at Career Source. I was also a Chief Development Officer for Children's Home Society and Neighbor to Family. Worked with Gordon Johnson, the founder who passed away. So you're familiar with those programs. And when I mentioned Gordon, I mean, he had a heart of gold, in particular wanting to keep sibling groups together in foster care. But he was also a businessman, just like you are. You're a business. And you touched on, you know, what the investment will do in the future. But we would take a hard look at, well, how does this solve a business problem? And what's old is new. Government grant funding, you could die by that. You can't live by it. You know, it's always coming and going, ebbing and flowing, and it's not a good model to depend on no matter where we are with that. So to diversify, I would really look into that and the corporate piece of it, how you're solving a business problem. Now, of course, I have a dog in the fight, but your Daytona Regional Chamber is one way of doing it. And it may not be the business after hours and networking modes that you've been exposed to. It could be our advocacy. That was my secret sauce. It saved me in one project 6 weeks of time going down the wrong path to build a corporate relationship in a different line of what we offer. That's with more higher level government officials and some different professionals that you haven't seen before that can open doors potentially for you. But if not us, and I know you're busy, you probably need to be out there being the face, make time for it, have someone on your board, go out there and start working the corporate side of philanthropy to survive and thrive.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a great advice.
KJ Philly, Daytona City Lifestyle. Kind of building off of what Lori was just saying right there. Do you guys have a development manager whose sole job is going out and getting
Okay.
contributions for you? Okay. I was about to say, because if you don't, you should probably get one.
Yeah. Them as well as us.
Hi guys, great presentation. You mentioned you had boxing classes, and did I hear that you've got some kind of facility or physical space?
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that, where it is, how many square foot, opening hours, that kind of stuff?
Yes. So we are located right there in Holly Hill, 1615 Ridgewood Ridgewood Avenue, Holly Hill, Florida. Right on Ridgewood. As soon as you pass Flomage, where that 7-Eleven is, right across from Hungry Howie's, that's where we are. We have 3 actual units in there, almost 3,000 square feet per se. Like I said, boxing gym, workout gym, meditation room, music studio, and then of course several offices for us to actually meet the kids. And we've been here since 2016. I don't know if I said that, but we've been here a while. So like she was saying, in order to make it work, you got to do a lot of things, and it is up and down, and the business does have to transition. So we've been into 2 or 3 different transitions, and like I said, when you're doing good work, somehow God finds a way to make it happen. And like I said, a lot of non-for-profits. I heard somebody say when I went to this outreach meeting. Are you Ormond or Daytona?
Daytona.
Daytona. Okay. So he said the people that are working the hardest seem to be struggling the most. So we're I don't say I'm gonna not be biased, but I feel like we're doing a lot of work more than I work for these agencies, so I know kind of what they do. So I know that we're doing a little bit more than the normal day-to-day service. But I feel like I said, without those big corporate fundings and those kind of things, feel like we're struggling the most. I've seen so many different other businesses from 2018 going out of business all over the place. Not even just non-for-profits, even for-profits. You know, so we're all in this together, and I feel like not-for-profits we gotta kind of band together because they're all fighting the same kind of
The
fight.
harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, just one follow-up question. So you've been in business for a while. Do you have a Rolodex of corporate relationships that you could tap into if you had a particular initiative?
We actually do. So, for example, we have our annual gala, which is we just had our second one. It's at Hard Rock, and that is one of our bigger fundraisers. We are now starting to grow out of that space, and now we're gonna try to add more bigger fundraisers versus like for example our events. Those are more of like our in-kind, I guess you would say, events. So we never really have to come out of pocket too much because people usually sponsor that specific event. So like our fishing event, a lot of fishing people sponsor that because that's their interest and that's their passion. Then when we do our field day, the city of Daytona sponsored the field. So we were able to not have to pay so much money just to have these events to fill those voids, because that doesn't really pay the bills. Those events aren't something that gets us increase of money. That shows kind of the impact that we're doing. So yes, we do have different corporate sponsors, and then we reach out to them per se for specific events or like our big galas and those kind of things. So we do have a.
Yeah, cool. Let's connect afterwards. I'd like to talk to you about esports.
Definitely.
Real quick, this Saturday, we're having painting with the police. We partnered with Holly Hill Police Department just to dispel some myths and some uneasiness between at-risk youth and the police. So we're getting the police and the youth together this Saturday at Riverside Park from 12 to 4. And while they're painting, they're just gonna talk and, get those myths and those uneasy conversations out of the way. So we're creating a safe space for the youth and the police to talk about their relationship.
Derek, Tanya, first of all, congratulations on your 1MC presentation, and thank you for being back. 114 youth served, that is quite a feat. And you mentioned on your presentation that you don't want to mention that you were the best nonprofit. I think you should. You should continue shouting that on top of your rooftop. And how are you communicating that effectively to your stakeholders? Because if you're not, because I've seen the news story that was done by the Orlando TV station, I think you should be always putting that on your website. I know that that is on YouTube, I've seen that. Those are the type of stuff that corporation and, they're looking for that. And it's good for your SEO and all that type of stuff. So how are you continuing on communicating that effectively?
So we are revamping our website to kind of mirror kind of more over. It's hard to kind of say everything that we do because we don't just do one thing, you know. So we're trying to kind of magnify or put a spotlight on the main things that we do, so the people that are wanting to invest and support us can actually make it. It can make it easier timeline for them to say, hey, if I want to support this program, this is why. Versus me having to explain everything to each person per se. So we're kind of trying to revamp of how we're displaying our services. Per se.
Don't shy away from all the successes that Mr. and Miss Mentoring have done. I mean, I think you should always put it out there.
Great presentation, guys. Really, the statistics I think are fantastic. For somebody who doesn't know how difficult it is to change behavioral issues, to put up perhaps what the national standard is, right? That I think it's like 35%. If you have a 35% success rate, that's outstanding. You have a 98%. You know, so to compare your statistics to what a typical program might be providing would be something that could help enhance that your key performance index, right? I have two questions. One is, how long can someone be in the REAL program? I mean, you don't just have them for 6 weeks like insurance covers, right? You're in there for the long haul.
Okay.
And then the other, is this mandatory or voluntary?
Perfect. Well, those are very good questions. So, like I said, we get them from a lot of different places. So, of course, if they're court ordered, they're mandatory that they have to provide those services, or DJJ, something like that. Like they have to be get a certain amount of services done before they can get off of probation and those kind of things. Then there's also voluntary. If you had a kid that was struggling, or your grandson, or something like that, you can also refer to us, and it doesn't have to be court ordered or referred. It can just be you guys looked us up on your own and found us and said, like, hey, I need this would be a good benefit for my child or my family's child, and then you can also call as well. So it doesn't have to be court. It doesn't have to be it's voluntary and involuntary kind of thing. And then regarding the length of services, so if you know how the kids that we're dealing with, that isn't, some insurances are like 6 weeks and then, or 6 months and then you're done. And once your units run out, services are done. So from what I've experienced, you know, a lot of these kids that are dealing with, they're not going to be out of their negative environment. They're not going to move out into the best neighborhood within 6 months. They're not going to make a miraculous turnaround in that short period of time. But I will say there are different kind of kids that are, because everybody's level of severity isn't always there. So the kids that are having like no parenting, they're IEP, they can't pass grades, they're just acting out in school, those might take a little bit longer to be with them and work with them, because that takes a lot of time and transitioning to go through. That's why treatment plans have to be adjusted, because that's why there's a review every 3 to 6 months, because treatment plans usually change and behaviors usually adjust. Going from elementary to middle school is a big adjustment. So a lot of those kids, treatment plans have to change between that transition. But so like you said, there is no per se time limit. We do have a year's time frame, but like I said, if we need to continue with them moving forward and it's justified due to the behaviors, then we can make that kind of discretion decision. Just like with insurance, if you bill past the units and they say, hey, why does this person still need services, and then you provide a treatment plan and the things that they're having, and they usually allow you to continue to do it. So it is no real timeline, but it is at that year, because we want to give a full school's length and going into the summertime, because they say summertime is when a lot of kids start acting up. I know when I was 16, it was like, I don't got nothing to do. You know, that's when my mom put me in so many basketball camps and kept me busy throughout the whole year, because if I didn't, I'm going to be hanging around kids that aren't doing anything, and then I'm falling to that rabbit. You know, so, yes. That's why we try to keep them busy throughout the whole year.
How many more staff members are you looking to add to the team?
Well, when the money comes in, we're looking to hire as many as we can. So like I said, it really is more of a meet the demand kind of thing. So for example, if let's say we get another funding source. I don't know if you looked at it, but I try to pay my staff the place that won't have so much of a high turnover rate. Because when I worked at this place, it was like it wasn't really there. So I was always looking for that next or having to work. I was working 3 jobs at one time. I was working Neighbors of Family, Children's Home Study, and Christmas Help. All seeing same similar kids, but in different. One was DJJ, one was foster care, and one was just regular community help. You know, so I know that I had to do that to make ends meet. So I know if I'm having to do it, the money hasn't changed. Just like teachers, the price hasn't really increased too much. You know, so a therapist is kind of limited to kind of a certain amount of level of life. I mean, even with so that's why they have to continuously go out and find new jobs, and it's a high turnover rate, and that's not good for the kids because they have to learn somebody new. They gotta trust them again. They gotta kind of relearn all of their behaviors, and that's a big transition for the kids. And that usually is a setback. You know, so that was sometimes why I'm still with kids 10 and 15 years because when they might have been doing good, and then 2 or 3 years they come back, and we're still here, and just being able to be a consistent, a consistent community player for families to know that, hey, if I have an issue, I have somebody that I can call, versus we're gone and you don't hear from us anymore. That's kind of big. And there's a lot of agencies that they were a big resource and now they're not here. And now where do those families go once these agencies leave? So if we left and that 114 kids or families were not dealt with, how many of those would have turned into criminal acts? How many of them would have turned into Baker Acts? How many of them would have turned into expulsions from school, turning into homelessness? A lot of things could have gone with just those 114. So like I said, as far as hiring, the more money we get, the more people we hire, the more demand we need.
I think giving an exact number will allow you to create my concern. So, like right now, there's 4 members in our staff who are able to do this or this many kids. Our goal is to help this amount of kids, but we need this many more members in order to accomplish that. So it kind of helps also with getting more sponsors and funding because we can tell them exactly what we're trying to do and what's actually needed to do that. And we can still point back to look what we're able to do with just this amount. But we still need more because our goal is to do this amount. And then like Oprah said over there in terms of the percentage, so now that at 94%, it's an even bigger impact. Not only we can touch this many more lives. Okay,
Thank you. Definitely.
So technically, we have set a goal to do 200 youth annually, right now. Right now. We're trying to reach 200 youth annually in the next year. So with that, we would need at least 2 more staff. And depending on what we hire, I shouldn't say what, but depending on levels of expertise in their education, you have to hire people at a great rate to not have those turnovers. So depending on the funding, depends on who we can hire and how many kids we can service.
And then to break it down real easy, so we're at 100. Let's just say we're at 100. We're trying to get to 200. So it's 45,000 that I try to at least keep that around for my staff. So each staff is 25 people. So to get to 100, we need 45 times 3 or 4.
Does that include fringe?
That includes fringes, everything. That's kind of salaries and everything, And for like example, each staff, I don't know when it comes to business, it's like it ain't just hiring and paying their staff. But then you have EHRs for their documentation. Then there's just to do the payroll, there's extra QuickBooks, extra subscriptions and stuff like that. So until you really get into it, and regarding the amount that you get per year, when you're smaller, they don't say once you get to 150, 250,000, you got a $10,000 audit review that you have to do. Where does that money come from? If we're already limited to what we're doing, where do these extra benefits and stuff come from? So that's why, like I said, we've been lucky enough to still make it this far, and I had to make those transitions and cut down. I had to take my payroll down sometimes because it was a bad year. We lost with Ms. Robin, it was Career Source. We got $75,000 from them to run a summer program. But guess what? The last 2 years we didn't get that because Career Source got consolidated and Brevard took over. So then Volusia lost their funding per se, or their power to kind of show where the funding goes. So for the past 2 years, guess what? We still ran our summer program, but we didn't have that 75K. So like I said, we're gonna make it work. I sold one of my Airbnbs to make sure that if it did go down, we're gonna be okay. Because this is my passion, you get what I'm saying? This is mine. My name has been on it. So I'm not just gonna say, oh, let me just go work for somebody else again. I'm gonna do everything that I can to make sure that this works. And it's not about me, it's about the 114. It's about my staff. If we lose, that's a lot of people that are affected, you know? So that's kind of why I'm so deeply invested into it.
Great presentation. I'm Charlie, one of the organizers here, and I have two questions. One, on your list of activities, you had entrepreneurship listed, and you're speaking to a room full of entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Could you expand a little bit on what you do? And then secondly, what kind of challenge have you had that helped you build the business?
A few questions. Let me touch base on the entrepreneurship side of things. So, not only is our financial literacy considered entrepreneurship because we have so many different kinds of entrepreneurs come speak to the kids. That's why we go to different college tours. All about, we went to Bethune-Cookman, Daytona State, Embry-Riddle. We're now getting ready to add Stetson onto there. So we're trying to give them as many opportunities that they can. Brown, I didn't even forgot about them. So we're trying to expand into outside of the box type of opportunities. And then we also had entrepreneurship, what was it, the hidden gems. So that was something that we contributed to, where we picked 10 kids that had businesses or ideas of businesses, and we helped them get those started for the whole summer. So pretty much they started their LLC, had their 30-second pitches, had their taglines. We pretty much helped them build their businesses to fruition. So when I say I see a kid and I see that they have some type of potential, I take them on myself and I try to help them get towards that. So I know that was entrepreneurship. What was the second question was?
Challenges.
Challenges are funding is the main one. That's definitely the biggest one, because we're limited. Like I said, I would do so much more if we had more capacity to do that. I would have got a bigger building if we had more capacity to do that. So it's a lot of things that it's like we're ready to kind of take off, but we only have a certain amount of horsepower right now because this funding is kind of what allows us to kind of go fast or not go fast. Any other, what other things? Really, just, like I said, I pay the staff correctly, so it's not too much of a high turnover. So that's one barrier that we're not missing. And I've been in the game a little bit long enough to know what I can't do and don't do and who to speak to and not who to speak to. So I've kind of worked out a lot of those kinks. So now it's kind of like we're able to kind of run smoothly because we worked out a lot of those things. So not too many barriers, really just the funding.
All right, thank you so much. Fantastic, and love what you're doing for the community. My suggestion would be, I know that you'd like to expand and reach to 200 plus youth annually, and you said that one of your biggest challenges is funding, is finding out what amount do you need, and then work back to that. Okay, we know we need to generate this much money every year. That's adding 2 staff members, and then have a strategy to get there. What events are you going to do that are structured? I know you're expanding on your fundraising efforts, and you have to get out of the Hard Rock because there's not enough room. That's excellent. I hope to see 500 people at the Ocean Center next time.
Yes.
Right? So, and then strategize those goals to get to that number, because that number's not up there, and it's probably, you might meet someone in a room like this one day that says, we know how to help them get to that number, but we don't know what the number is. I know that you want to affect 200 plus, but there's a cost to that. What's that cost? Identify it, and then you'll find people to say, you know what, we can help them get there. And maybe it's a part of sponsoring something, but those are the things that, you got to find that number, and then share it. And don't let it be a secret, because that's a goal that we can help you get to that. She's got 2 quick tools for that, by the way.
And I mentioned it before, we have a fabulous Association of Fundraising Professionals chapter here locally. We're looking at joining that, and also just down the road, either way you go. You can go to the Nonprofit Center up in Jacksonville, or the Edith, I can never say this, Edith Bush Institute, I think it's in Winter Park, somewhere around there, has great resources, worth the time.
Don't be afraid to ask,
Yeah.
okay? All right, gang, thank you so much. We have one famous question that we asked every presenter. What is it that 1 million cups can do for you?
Well, just, like I said, just meeting different new people is always new, similar faces and similar faces. I will say that even something on a small end of when it comes to donating or sponsorships, like one person gives us $5 a month, and it's small, but it adds up. Now, if it's 10 people that's getting $5 a month, it kind of grows from there. So, like I said, if there is something that, if this is something that you are passionate about and you want to kind of invest into it, anything can help, small or big, even just telling other people, because that person might be able to have some money to help sponsorship or those kind of things. So there's really just, I'll come back again whenever you guys want me to, updates on that, and just like I said, just keeping our name fresh in everybody's mind.
All right, here's a great way to tell everyone else. Hey, like them on Facebook. They got a great Facebook page. Like them, share their events, and that's a great way organically to get the name and the word out. So
Thank you.
all right, thank you guys, everyone. We'll come up with the family picture. We'll get the lights turned on. If everyone can come up and surround these folks, and